In Friendswood, Texas, the only disturbance to the order of things came during hurricane season, when storm surges in Galveston Bay left the creeks with nowhere to drain, and floodwaters could rise in an instant. Some 7,000 people lived there in the mid-1970s, when it still retained the austere calm of its early days as a Quaker settlement. Halfway between Galveston and Houston, it remained, as the county's sole dry town, a world unto itself, a stubborn holdout against modern excess. Lisa Rogers had never lived anywhere else, and apart from school, she spent most of her waking hours at her grandparents' horse farm. At 14, she preferred the company of horses. She liked the quiet sameness of her days, the predictable hum of life. Her mother, Penny, longed for something different. Penny often told her stories about an earlier, more exhilarating time when she had been a regular on The Larry Kane Show, Houston's own version of American Bandstand. Of all the bright-eyed teenagers who were chosen to appear on the show each Sunday in the late 1950s and early 1960s, it was Penny who stood out. Her heart-shaped face, framed by dark, dramatic eyebrows and high cheekbones, often drew comparisons to Elizabeth Taylor. But no modeling contracts followed. No acting career bloomed. After high school, she married and divorced 3 men in quick succession and suffered a shattering loss when her twin sister died of leukemia. By early 1977, at 33, she was raising 2 children on her own, working as a receptionist at the funeral home her parents owned, and still living in Friendswood. It was that spring, at the funeral home, that Penny first encountered a man named Paul Skalnik. He cut a striking figure in a 3-piece suit, his blue-gray eyes tracking her from across a room full of mourners. At 27, he was 6 years Penny's junior, but he spoke with the polished assurance of a trial lawyer or politician, leaning in just close enough to make the conversation feel private without being intrusive. He told Penny that he had grown up in nearby League City, and that after college he had quickly ascended the corporate ladder to become a top executive at Southwest Airlines. Then a scrappy Texas upstart, Southwest was known for outfitting its flight attendants in hot pants and go-go boots. Skalnik, with his outsized ambition, seemed to reflect the company's brash confidence. When Penny brought him home to meet Lisa and her younger brother, Lynn, Lisa was put off by his heavy-handed efforts to win over her mother. Penny, however, was enthralled by his attention. Skalnik held out the promise of a life that was bigger, brighter, grander, and he made it feel thrillingly within reach, carrying a business-sized checkbook with him whenever he took her out. Restraint, Lisa noticed, was not his strong suit. He cultivated a maximalist style, accenting his wide-lapelled suits with gold chains, a Rolex watch, and plush sideburns, and he encouraged Penny to live large, too. After a brief courtship, he spirited her away to Las Vegas for a weekend, and they returned to Friendswood as Mr. and Mrs. Paul Skalnik. Skalnik moved into Penny's condo, where he soon settled into a routine. On weekday mornings, he bounded out the door with his briefcase in hand, telling her that he was headed to the airport to fly to Southwest's headquarters in Dallas, and that he would be back home in time for dinner. On weekends, he took Penny, Lisa, and Lynn to the best hotels in Dallas and Austin, where he ran up the tab on room service, summoning platters of chocolate-covered strawberries and bottles of champagne. He bought Penny a fur coat and jewelry and outfitted their home with the latest technology, including a microwave and another modern marvel, a VCR. He gave Penny both a baby blue Lincoln Continental and a customized Dodge van, complete with red velvet curtains, a TV, and CB radios. Only Lisa seemed to see Skalnik's idiosyncrasies, how he filched the robes and towels from their luxury hotel suites and squirreled away the purple velvet bags that held his crown royal. It didn't escape her attention, either, that he always kept his handgun within reach, even stashing it under the driver's seat when he was behind the wheel. What these details added up to, she could not be sure, but she took note of each peculiarity. Once, on a drive through League City, he pointed out the house where he said his parents lived, and Lisa stared at the sun-blistered paint and shabby yard. The tiny frame house, she thought, seemed oddly untouched by his largesse.